What up, guys? James from Bolt Bros here. Season's over with. 2024 season is done. We are moving on to 2025. And let's just talk about the Chargers free agents that will be available for the Chargers to re-sign. A lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh in that Joe Ortiz conference that happened yesterday about how they want to bring back a lot of guys. So let's just go ahead and talk about some of those players that they might want to bring back next year. So once again, guys, James from Bolt Bros, let's go.
Bolt Bros.
Once again, guys, appreciate all the love and support. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel if you have not. We appreciate all the love and support you provide for us, and also the comments below about this subject. I mean, 2024 is over with. Now moving on to 2025. We got a lot of decisions that we got to make ahead of us. From Joey Bosa, will he come back? If he doesn't come back, basically we'll save, give or take, almost $30 million towards the salary cap. Do you want to bring back some of these players that we had last season that have performed extremely well? You know, I'll just say this as just a quick thoughts before I get into the list of all the players. You know, a lot of these players overachieved and they did a phenomenal job. Once again, coaching matters a lot, guys. And Jim Harbaugh has been a phenomenal coach on top of that, plus top to bottom, to even to say, you know, Jesse Minter did a phenomenal job. Greg Roman at times did a good job, but once again, I think he had a lot less weapons than he really needed to be able to perform at a very high level, which was pretty obvious in that Texan game. Our weaknesses became our, you know, actually were very exploited by the Texans. And offensively, we just couldn't get things rolling very well. Got to score touchdowns to win games, right? And we just kind of really did not do that. We could have put this game away pretty early, and we just did not find ways to make that happen. So either which way, there's a lot of decisions that got to be made with this team here very shortly in the next coming months. Are we going to bring back some players that we've had on this team? Are we going to re-sign them? We currently have about $77 million-ish to be able to spend. If Joey Bosa walks, we add, give or take, another $30 million on top of that. We'll have plenty of money to spend. Now, who are we going to bring back? That's the thing. Once again, Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz had a conference yesterday talking about that, stating that we will be bringing back some players that we did have on this team. So they kind of almost want to run it back. You know, we'll see if that does pan out. But let's just go ahead and get into the list real quick about what players are going to be available from the 2024 team to the 2025 team. So obviously, top of the list, Khalil Mack. You know, Khalil Mack's a stud, right? You know, Khalil, even after the season in the locker room, he did interview about it, and he said, hey, look, I'm going to take a couple weeks to kind of talk with my family, get my mind right. Obviously, kind of reset your mind a little bit too. It's pretty easy to be able to go after a game like that and say, hey, I don't want to play anymore, I'm retired, kind of walk away from the game at that point. But, you know, at the same side, it takes a little time for your mind to get back into the right position to make a clear, concise decision. I think Khalil Mack would want to come back. And Jim Harbaugh has even said he would love to have him back. I think all the fans would love to have him back. I mean, Khalil Mack has been an absolute leader and a dog for us on the edge. And if you obviously do walk away with Joey Bosa not being on the team, you got to find somebody to fill that gap outside of Thule, and also Bud Dupree being under contract for one more year. So you're definitely going to need to get somebody out there. I'd love to see Khalil Mack back. Not sure if it'd be a discount rate type situation or not. I mean, he'll be 34 going into 35 into this season, or excuse me, the 2025 season. Who knows what he would want at that point? Maybe he just wants to find a way to win and get things rolling again. I mean, guys, I'll reiterate as much as I possibly can. The Chargers aren't that far away. They are not that far away from becoming a championship contender at this point. Just a little bit of retooling here wouldn't be bad at all. So personally, one guy I'd love to have back for sure is Khalil Mack. Going down the list, you know, Morgan Fox, I think, would be another guy that would be great to have back just for more depth. I think he's a very, very solid player all around. I think he's a player that we could possibly get for cheap. Once again, even to say here, you know, we pretty much had him at $3.75 million. I think that wouldn't be a bad situation to have. He did play quite a bit, 52.8% snaps versus Khalil Mack at 56.4. He did play quite a bit on the field. So I think Morgan Fox would be great for inside defensive line depth. And you could possibly get him for cheap, and maybe even cheaper than 3.75 too. Christian Fulton's one that's kind of an interesting one, man. He came over here in a 1-year agreement. And once again, I want to emphasize a lot on that, guys. This last year's team had a lot of 1-year players. This list is massive, by the way. And what we did with 1-year based players, give or take, to be able to get 11 and 6 record regular season, 11-7 to end the season, is pretty phenomenal, guys. You got to emphasize that as much as you possibly can. That is massive with this team. A lot of stopgap type situations. You inherited a lot of players from the past regime. You basically are trying to sift out talent to be able to bring in, guys that could kind of fill those gaps right now, and also figure out who really fits the mold for what Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz is trying to brew up there. So now going to Christian Fulton, he was a guy from the Titans, another guy that we grabbed from the Titans, 1-year contract. Wasn't necessarily the biggest of contract, give or take. He's currently looking at about $3.1 million per season, guaranteed 2.445. He did play quite a bit, almost 70%, 69.5% snaps. He's only 27, but do you bring back a Christian Fulton when you got a Tarheeb Still, Cam Hart, that really, really played extremely well? Now, Cam Hart obviously was a guy that had a lot of injuries. He did get injured in the last game too versus the Texans. You start kind of looking at things like that where you're like, hey, look, can he be a full-time starter? Not sure. Would you want to have Christian Fulton back? I'm a little bit on the fence with him at this point. There's sometimes he's looking great, and there's other times he's just getting picked on the entire game. And it's hard to be able to say that. Like, personally, my opinion, I would sign him for a cheap price. I don't know if I'd want to keep him as a starter at this point. I really like the way Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart played on field. They played extremely well together. And I think that they would be great as starters. Christian Fulton could be just kind of a depth piece for us, in my opinion. Who knows? We'll see where that goes. But this is the hard decisions that we got to figure out for the offseason here. Also, you got to consider, we do have 8 solid draft picks right now, plus another 3 with comp picks. We could have 11 picks for this draft, guys. So we could really go out there and still find a lot of young talent that might fit the mold more too. So I'm a little bit on the fence on this Christian Fulton signing. What's your thoughts, bros, on that? Love to be able to hear from you in the comments. DJ Chark, to be honest, is, I think, good as gone. Really, DJ Chark, as throughout the season, once again, we were all like, where's this guy at? He looked great in camp, and then all of a sudden did not become a part of the offense pretty much at all till even later in the season. Ironically, had quite a bit of snaps in the playoffs, which was really random. I don't think he's going to stick around. I know we need wide receiver help. I don't think DJ Chark is going to be that guy next year. Easton Stick, 1-year contract. Yet another guy that's a 1-year contract. No snaps. Preseason played terrible. You go to the next guy. Tyler Henneke came in for a reason, because Easton Stick played terrible. I don't see Easton Stick coming back. I see Tyler Henneke coming back. I really think, hot take, I think we're going to draft a quarterback this draft. I'm just going to say Harbaugh's going to want to find some guy that maybe fits his mold too, as that number 2 guy, push that guy. Maybe even Taylor Henneke does get re-signed, which I think he will. I think that adding another quarterback in the draft is going to be something that's going to happen. I'm very, very confident it's going to happen. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to be a high-level pick. I'm going to say it's going to be down the road type pick, 5th, 6th type round type situation. I think he's going to look for somebody that's going to be another guy that he can groom in the system too. Denzel Perryman, moving on. Another 1-year contract kind of guy. I love Denzel when he's out there, man. Just absolute great Swiss Army knife. Perfect guy that's really complimented Deion Henley, which I think he really learned a lot from Denzel. Denzel and Deion Henley did actually have a Instagram chat, I believe, together, and Deion was just real bummed, talking about how we lost and how it sucks to see that we're not playing this weekend. And Denzel was like, hey man, like, sucks for me too. I was out there and I got basically a jacked up arm from it, and I had to sit on the sidelines regardless, and I had to watch it all unfold. And you know what? I think Denzel, he does want to run it back. He sounds like he wants to come back for his 11th year. And I think it would be awesome to be able to have Denzel back. I'm not sure if it's necessarily going to be as a starter position or if we're going to have maybe Junior Colson get more involved in the linebacking position. You got to say that when one regime comes in, you basically make shifting and changes for the guys that will work well for you. I would love to be able to see Junior Colson get back out there, but I'd love to keep Denzel Perryman in this group. If you could get him for basically another quick 2.3 million, I think that would be a go in my opinion. I'd love to see him back out there. Once again, he is 33. He is getting up there in age. Will we move on? Not sure. J.K. Scott, once again, another guy that's kind of on those last contract. Are we going to look at a new punter at this point? There was a little talk last season that J.K. Scott was getting a little heat for his kicks. He was getting a little bit shorter on his kicks. He was not kicking as well. Do we go out there and try to get another guy? I mean, obviously the draft, you could find maybe a guy that's got a great situation with better punts, more consistency, more accuracy. I mean, J.K. Scott had a phenomenal punt in the Texans game that bounced perfectly at about the 2-yard line for great field position. You want to flip the field, put the other team in a bad situation. That should have been a safety. I don't know why that did not get called back as a safety with that C.J. Stroud throw away in the end zone. A little bit weird there, guys, but once again, J.K. Scott, you could probably get him for relatively cheap. I mean, most punters are not going to be high-level priced. He is 29, so he's getting up there in age too. $2 million probably is what they're kind of looking at too, so who knows where that's going to be. Asante Samuel Jr., he's out of his rookie contract at this point. After week 4, pretty much was benched, and even in the offseason in the locker room, he talked about it. He's got some shoulder stingers situation of some sort that he's been dealing with since his childhood. I don't know. I think there's something more there. I mean, there were some reports, people saying that he wanted big contract, big money. I don't know. He said he wanted to run it back with the Chargers. Obviously, no player is going to say, I don't want to be back here. But at the same side, I think it really boils down to, does Harbaugh feel he fits well to the mold? Now, once again, Asante Samuel Jr. could be another guy that they walk, gets a big contract somewhere else. Let's say he goes to the Eagles. I heard even some ideas that that's going to even happen. But let's say he gets a big contract, and what does he do? He walks. Chargers get a comp pick at that point. Joe Ortiz loves comp pick, right? He loves to be able to get those comp picks, and even to that point, we're going to have 3 of them from players that left last year. So I think there's a chance that Asante is going to walk. I like Asante Samuel Jr. a lot of different ways. But at the same side, if there's going to be a lot of money spent on him, I don't know if he's going to stick around. And I do feel, this is my thoughts. I don't think he's fitting well for what Jim Harbaugh wants in a cornerback. So we will see there. Troy Dye is a guy that I think played extremely well. I think he did well enough. He got a lot of time on the field as a linebacker through injuries and situations that we had. Great special teams guy, too. I think he's a very good depth piece. I mean, if we're getting him at $1.7 million, sign him back, bring back Troy Dye. Poona Ford. Now, man, this was an absolute slam dunk signing for Cheese. This is a guy you've got to bring back. He has been a phenomenal player for us. We've had such a long period of time not having a good nose tackle inner defensive line. Now, once again, we did give up about 130 yards on the ground. That's not good. But I do think Poona Ford has played phenomenal for us. 55.3% time on the field. He's 30 years old. We only did it for about 1.7, guarantees of $665 million for him. This guy needs to get signed back. I would love to be able to bring him back for another 2-year contract. Let's say it's about $4 million. I think that would be a slam dunk for this team for sure. So I'd definitely like to see Poona Ford back, but I'd also like to see our defensive line to get attacked in the draft also too. Also, you got to think too, Justin Aboigbe was another guy that we drafted too under the Ortiz regime. So keep an eye out for him and where he's going to end up going too. J.K. Dobbins, this one is an interesting one. I mean, he is a great running back when healthy. And to be honest, I think he did a phenomenal job this year. Over 1,000 total scrimmage yards this year. He got 900 on the ground, let alone. It was kind of a prove-it year for him, I should say, $1.6 million, 50,000 was only guaranteed for him. He did hit some accelerators with his contract through some bonuses and metrics. I'd love to see J.K. Dobbins back, but this is going to be a very big, healthy running back class. I mean, you could go back out there and say the Ashton Genties. You could say the Scattabos, like who fits like a glove, in my opinion, for a Joe Ortiz type situation. Big physical, tough to tackle type back. There is kind of that side that I'd love to see J.K. Dobbins with Scattabo. Who knows what's going to happen with Gus Edwards. Now, going back to the J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards situation, you go ahead and say and look at, and what has been told through Joe Ortiz is there's not going to be any changes in coaching staff. We're going to run it back with the same guys that we have here. So what does that mean? We're probably going to keep Greg Roman as our offensive coordinator. So Greg Roman has said J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards look like our guys, like they're adopted children. He loves these guys. And J.K. Dobbins, if you get a nice full year out of him, he'll get 1,000-yard back plus for sure with him. He's great as a back. And once again, this offseason will give him another time to let his body get healthy. He did get kind of a knee injury during the Ravens. He did have a 4-week off 4-week IR stint through the year. If he could just stay healthy as a running back, this guy's an absolute dog. Fits the mold very well. Has that thunder element and a lightning element to him. He would be great. I just feel like we could have that number 2 guy, Scattabo. Gus Edwards kind of had an off year too. If we do let go of Gus, we do save about $3 million. We could shift that money accordingly too. So who knows where we're going to go. I do fully expect we're going to draft another running back. I know Kamani Vidal was drafted, but I don't see him as a 2 yet at this point. Maybe the offseason tells us otherwise, but I do think that we got a great chance to get another very solid running back in this draft. So we'll see. Marcus May, safety. Guy came in, played well, got a pick, did well for us. I think this could be a great depth signing for us, but I don't want to put too much cog on the safety position. There is a lot of safeties in here that we'll talk about here shortly that could do well, but you could get them for a cheap pricing, I'm sure. You could basically add him to the back end if you want, so I wouldn't be mad at that. Josh Palmer's an interesting one. You know what? It's interesting when you go back to the history of Josh Palmer. Go back to when Keenan Allen, Mike Williams went out. Josh Palmer became the starter. Looked great as the number 1. This year just kind of couldn't get things rolling. I feel like he had a lot of injury situations. I don't know if he necessarily is a fit for the Jim Harbaugh mold, but you could possibly get him cheap at this point. 26, younger guy, $1.2 million was on his rookie-based contract. I mean, you might be able to bring him back for a short, 1-year type situation just to see if you can run it back with him too. I don't really know where we're going to go with it, but I do say, going back to it, Pass Regime did draft him. Maybe he doesn't fit this mold this time. So who knows? Tony Jefferson, I'd love to see him back. He has even said he wanted to come back. I think it would be great to have him back, a veteran guy in the safety. I think he would be great. Eli Apple, late signing, didn't really get enough out of him. I don't think we're going to sign him. We're going to move on from him. But I think it's going to depend on the cornerback situation. Elijah Molden, this is a guy we have got to get back. It is so bad to see him get injured to end the season. I think it was a broken femur for him. Sucks to see that happen. He has played phenomenal. What a great trade it was. It was a 2026 back-end draft pick, and he played out of his mind. Fully expect him to come back. 2-year contract, in my opinion. Give him to about $3 million. I think he'll come back for sure. I think Elijah Molden would be great. Now, he's known as a cornerback, and he was playing a lot of safety. Be interesting to see if they want to put him into a cornerback position too. Who knows? But he did play extremely well as a safety. Shaquille Quarterman, guy that was back and forth between practice squad and such. You could probably bring him back. He did good job. And the special teams, you got to make sure you look at special teams and make sure that that's shored up. He would also be just a linebacker 3 for us, 4 possibly in the back end. 2 for us. I'd take him back. Tier Tart was a guy that I wanted the Chargers to get in the offseason. Ended up going to the Dolphins. Got cut by the Dolphins. Got brought in by the Chargers. It was a guy that even Ortiz wanted to bring in. I think we have got to bring back Tart in. Bring him back in for another 1-year contract, $2 million contract. That would be great for us. I would love to have Tart back in there. Just adds a nastiness to the line. Sam Mustipher, center. I think we should bring him back for sure. Bring him back for about the same amount of price. It would be good to have some depth with the center position with, obviously, Bradley Bozeman, who is going to get let go and is off his contract at this point. Hayden Hurst, tight end. I don't think we're going to stick with him. We're going to probably go after the draft, in my opinion, for Hayden Hurst or at least to find another tight end. I've been saying for a while that I feel like Joe Ortiz and Harbaugh want to have these big tight ends. And you know what? I think we could go more youth at that point. I think Will Dissly did a phenomenal job, played above what we asked of him initially just as a blocking tight end. We just need to find somebody that's a little bit more dynamic in the passing game and add that weapon to Justin Herbert. I was saying before that I felt like it was more just like 260 plus kind of tight ends. We just want to put a lot of meat on the line and be more blocking based tight ends. But after that Texans game, it made me say, hey, look, we need to find a dynamic tight end that's a pass catcher, add a weapon to Justin Herbert, just not put it all on the wide receivers. For the pass game, we need a dynamic tight end. So I don't think Hayden Hurst is coming back. Jalen Reagor, cheap signing if we bring him back. I think there was a lot of love for the guy, but there was a lot of drops from him. I don't think he's going to be back, in my opinion. Maybe practice squad at best. Bradley Bozeman. This is a tough one, right? In the press conference that Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh had, they said, hey, look, we'd love to have Bradley Bozeman back. $1.125 million for him, a 31-year-old center at this point, played 99.1% of the snaps. I think we'd bring him back as a number 2. We'd try to bring a center that we would draft or maybe pick up in free agency. I think that's really going to dictate where we're going to go with this, guys. I mean, free agency starts in March. Bradley Bozeman could be a guy that could kind of just be out there for a while, and you could probably figure it out from there. Draft is in April. You could go after the draft at that point if you need to, but I'm a little on the fence of Bradley Bozeman. I want continuity for Justin Herbert, but at the same side, I do feel like that is the most critical position on an O-line. If you do not have a good center, you're not controlling the O-line well. Obviously, our inside line was not very good at all, and it got destroyed against the Texans. So we'll see. I would like to be able to hear from you guys on the Bradley Bozeman. Chris Rump, obviously, he's gone. I don't think he's coming back. Simi Fehoko, I would love to have him back. I think him and Justin Herbert have a very good connection. I think Simi Fehoko does a great job also in special teams, and he had actually made some really good clutch catches too. Jordan McFadden, he did get picked up by the Bears. Doesn't become official until basically the end of the year. So basically after the Super Bowl and the new year starts going into March. He has been picked up by the Bears. He will not be back. Foster Sorrell, I think, would be a good one just as a depth signing for us. He did well for us, and he's actually was a very highly touted left tackle coming out of college into the NFL too. So we'll see. Brennan James, or Hymas, I should say. We didn't really see much from him. I mean, he was obviously a guy from BS era and Telesco era. Who knows where we're going to go with him? I don't know if the coaching staff has saw a lot from him to be able to keep him around. Nick Niemann, I like Nick Niemann for special teams, and I think he is a very good linebacker too. And he's 28. I think it would be a good one to sign back for another one-year contract. Tucker Fisk is a guy I think that will definitely come back. I think he fits that mold tight end, blocking tight end. He got a lot of very good field time too. So we got a very good look at him. Now he's an exclusive restricted free agent, so he probably will be coming back. Same thing for Foster Sorrell as a restricted free agent. They could essentially bring him back. And to finish the list, Stone Smart, will he be back? He is a restricted free agent. I think he should be back, and he will be back at some level. I just don't know if he's going to get a whole heck of a lot of field time. He did have some phenomenal catches for us, but there is a long list of guys that are from the 2024 squad. Are we going to bring them back? So I'd like to be able to hear your top 3 list of which of those players are we going to get back and who is going to be priority. There's a lot of gaps on this team, guys. Once again, we're going to have potentially 11 picks going into this draft. I do think that there's a chance of some trades for players that could happen too with that amount of picks, or we're just going to go all in with 11 picks, try to get as youthful as we possibly can to fill some gaps on this team. So love to be able to hear from you. Top 3 picks from the 2024 squad that you bring back to this team. I'd love to be able to hear from it in the list below. So once again, like this video, subscribe to this channel if you've not. Love to be able to hear from you guys once again. And James from Bolt Bros, let's go.
Hey Hey, what's up? Cameron Dick here watching Bolt Bros podcast. Let's go.
Charged up, Bolt Bros on the night.